Okay, maps, task 1, maps. So we're going to look at this map, which is from Cambridge 13. Many of you will probably recognize it. And I'm going to show you a kind of basic way of doing it. I've got to say from the beginning, maps, they can do many different kinds of things. So I'll probably have to do a couple of videos on maps, but I'm just going to show you a basic format, which is a good starting point. Right, then I'm going to also attach this document, which is some overviews and some vocabulary for maps. You'll see when we do the overview, there's kind of two parts, a first part and a second part. Then with the two paragraphs, I'll explain all of this later. This is all about where something is, and this is all about how something changed. But you'll understand all of that once I start doing the map. But the main point I think I want to make in this video is just the basic structure. Of course, as always, we've got our paraphrase and then we've got our overview. Then some students want to mix the paragraphs and say there was this in 2010 and that changed to this in 2017, then there was this in 2010 and that in 17. And I don't like doing it that way. I think it's a more complicated way of doing it. Just do it simply, one paragraph for the first map and one paragraph for the second map. Why do it this way? Because it makes it easy for the examiner to follow what you're doing, and that's what you want. Also, because you will use a lot of similar language for this, saying where something was, and then you will use a lot of similar language for this, saying how something changed. You will use a lot of there was and there were in this paragraph. Unfortunately, I wish I could say only active, but some active, some passive. In this one, there is a lot of passive. So really, for maps, you've got to be very aware of when to use active and passive. Passive is super important for maps and processes. Good, let's get started. The two maps below show road access to a city hospital in 2007 to 2010. So immediately we can just get our paraphrase out of the way. Two maps, you can't really paraphrase. Maybe the pair of maps indicate road access. I wouldn't really paraphrase it. Street access or how roads were accessed. Maybe you can use a how. City hospital, I'm not going to paraphrase, and that I'm not really going to paraphrase. Students try and paraphrase way too much. Just paraphrase a little bit. You're not getting marks here. The examiner's not going to give you marks for a crazy paraphrase. So I'm just going to say something like, I'll use a how something changed. It's quite a good way for maps. The two maps below, the two maps indicate how road access to a city hospital changed over a 7-year period from 2007 to 2010. So something like this. Let me just type it. The pair of maps indicate how street access, okay, so I changed road access to street access, whatever, it's fine. To a city hospital, I didn't paraphrase, changed over the period. It's a nice paraphrase because I've paraphrased the grammar and I haven't really paraphrased the vocabulary. Students think if they paraphrase the vocabulary, then that's enough. It's actually better to paraphrase the grammar, and often it's a good idea to try and put in a how something happened. Alright, but that's enough about paraphrase. Don't go too crazy about paraphrase. Then we're going to look at the overview. Now for maps, I generally recommend that you have a kind of a two-part overview. One where you just say something general. It can be seen that there were significant changes. So in this document that I've given you here, I've given you a bunch of general overviews. The area, the map, or whatever, witnessed dramatic changes, saw significant developments, changed considerably, was totally transformed, was totally reconstructed, was totally redeveloped. All of that was completely modernized. So it's quite a general sort of thing. And then, if you can, you're going to add on something. It can be a whole second sentence. You can have a 2-sentence overview, or you can do a comma and add something more, but it must be more general. Don't get too specific. I believe this is enough to get you a Band 6 overview, because often there's not much that you can say. And then if you can think of something extra to say, that'll push you up into a Band 7 sort of overview. So I'm just going to say something like, overall a comparison of the two maps shows that. So you're going to have that memorized, and you're not going to make any grammar mistakes there. Remember that's very important. And now we have subject verb after the that. And I'll just say something quite simple like, just something like that. The area underwent significant development over the period shown. That's a nice word to use, underwent. But I can see, you got to then study the maps and see what did they change. Was it more entertainment, or was it more education, or was it more shopping, or was it more security? No, they actually told you what this is all about. It was all about transport. So I would add something specifically with respect to, and then I'll say the transport infrastructure. Lovely word, infrastructure. Use it in your task 1, use it in your task 2. So even though I've got the word specifically in my overview, this is still very general. Transport infrastructure. I didn't mention particular streets or names of streets or anything. Great. Then we're going to move on to this map, and we're just going to describe it. That's all. You don't have to panic yet and say how things changed. You want to say the city, there was a city hospital, there was a ring road, there was a hospital road, there was city road, there were 6 bus stops, there was a car park. Please don't think this is part of the map. Some of my students will say, on the far east of the hospital there was another bus stop. That's the key. It's called the key of the map. That's not part of the map. Alright, so start with the main thing, the city hospital. Now unfortunately I have to use passive. I can try and not use passive, but I want to say the city hospital was surrounded by the ring road. But let's start with our linking language. Nice linking language. Looking at the first map in more detail, it can be seen that. Now we can start. So then I'll say something like, the city hospital was surrounded by ring road. See, I'm focusing on the roads here. That's what this map is all about. City hospital was surrounded by ring road. Now I'm going to try and put in a comma which, or a reference pronoun. We want comma which and we want reference pronoun. Let's try a comma which, because we need that. Which, so what does this refer to? This refers to the ring road. So then I can say which was connected, again passive unfortunately, which was connected to city road by hospital road. So okay, we've got passive over there, passive over there. And then notice the structure, very common structure. Passive with the word by. The cow was eaten by the lion. Was connected to the city road by hospital road. Make that a capital. Alright, so it started off a little bit more complicated than I wanted because I've got so much passive. Often you don't have. You will just say, in the east of the park there was a. So let's try and do some there was now. There were 6 bus stops along hospital road. There were 6 bus stops along hospital road, and let's add some extra information, because we can say there were 3 on this side and 3 on that side. Also, let's try and throw in a reference pronoun. You've got to keep these reference pronouns and the comma which in your head and use them when you can. 3 of these were there. These is referring to the 6 bus stops. 3 of these were on the eastern side of hospital road and 3 on the western side. Then one more thing, there was also a car park on the eastern side of hospital road for staff and public. Alright, so now I've described everything there. I've done the roads, the bus stops, the car park, the hospital. That's all. And I just said it existed. It was there. Now I'm going to say what changed and how did it change. The second map shows that, easy linking language. You can say the 2017 map or whatever it was, 2010 map. But don't say by 2010. Because if you say by 2010, then you have got to start using present perfect, and I don't want you to use present perfect. You can use present perfect if you really know what you're doing. If you're going for band 8, band 9, but you don't need it for anything up to band 8. You really don't need it, and you're more likely going to make mistakes with present perfect, and it brings your mark down. So we just want to do past simple active or past simple passive, but this one will be mostly past simple passive. So what's the main thing? For me, it's all about the roads. I want to start with these roundabouts. Those are the most important things. So you're going to say, what do you call that? That is called an intersection. And that is an intersection. The intersections were converted into roundabouts. But you have to be quite specific. The intersections between Ring Road and Hospital Road, and between Hospital Road and City Road, were converted into roundabouts. It's a little bit clumsy, but I couldn't see any other way to do it. You could say the two intersections, but it's a bit vague. Anyway, let's just look at this. So we used that, I guess. We didn't use any of these, because you want to use the there was. I'm going to put, those are the most important things for this paragraph. Anyway, so I used, where is it, converted. Some of these are very common, you'll use a lot. Constructed is common, built is common, developed is very common. Okay, so converted is not there. Let me just add it. Converted, changed basically. There's converted there. Okay, but passive, that's the most important thing. They were passive. What's next? Bus station. A bus station was built on the western side of Hospital Road. A bus station was built passive on the western side of Hospital Road. I said a new bus station. And I want to say something about these small roads here. So this is a bit difficult. Slightly advanced English there, but if you wanted to, you could say the bus station was connected to the roundabouts by short roads. Something like that, not a problem. What else? I want to say that these were removed. The 6 bus stops were removed passive. Please notice here you're using the because you're talking about them for the second time. Before you didn't use the. But things like Hospital Road, you don't use the because it's a name. Very complicated, I know. The and a. And then the last thing is these 2 car parks. This car park was only for staff, but I don't think it was changed. They just said only the staff can use it. It wasn't converted, and a new one was built. So I'll say something like this. The old car park was only used by staff, and a new car park was built to the east side of the city hospital. And that's all. That's fine. And that's great. How many words is that? 187. Quite a lot. It can happen with maps. You have to actually write a bit more. I've seen it so often because you want to mention everything. Anyway, the vocab isn't super fancy, but the grammar's good because of a lot of passive, where I've used the passive correctly. The structure is very nice. There's map 1, there's map 2, easy for the examiner to follow. Alright, so that's just one map. But quickly, I want to take a look at the Cambridge book and see what they said about it. That's over here. So, let's see what the examiner said. The candidate identified all the key features: hospital, ring road, new car park, staff car park, bus station. Good. But the description's not always accurate. So 2 features that still remained. Yes, he says the staff car park was formerly a car park for both staff, and he said that that car park stayed the same. Anyway, he got that a bit wrong. Organization is clear, with some good use of cohesive devices, some good linking language, according to, apart from, further additional features. You see, the examiners love to see that stuff, and it's so easy to do, so do it. Although there is an error in the use of reference pronouns, these 2 features. Anyway, reference pronouns, as you can see, you must use them correctly. The range of vocabulary is sufficient. Spelling error, not serious. The use of this can... Yeah, the student tried to paraphrase roundabout, but that's not a good idea. A roundabout is a roundabout. If you see an apple, will you try and paraphrase apple? No, an apple is an apple. Students are getting too carried away with paraphrasing and synonyms. They think if they do fancy vocabulary, they will get good marks, and it never works. Simple mix of simple, complex sentences, good. Okay, so that's the grammar. According to both maps, the main feature, which is City Hospital, is surrounded by Ring Road. Okay, now immediately I get angry. Immediately I think this is band 5. He gave it band 5.5 overall, but I see terrible grammar here. The main feature, which is, here's a verb, City Hospital is, there's another verb. And now if I'm examining, I'm not happy immediately, because this student does not know how to make complex sentences. The student does not know how to use the word which, and that means the student will not get band 6 from me. Anyway, I'm getting angry, as you can see. In these two maps, again, that's not necessary, said it before. There have been two features that still remained. My goodness, why is there have been? That's wrong. You just want there was, there were. You don't need this have been present perfect thing. This two features, now really you should get that right, because that is obviously a plural. That should be these two features, and that's good if you can do it. It's a reference pronoun. One thing I don't like here is the student started with the things that remained, and we want, the important thing about the maps is the things that changed. Apart from these two features, there are some features that shows on but haven't shown on. Okay, now we're actually getting to the point. Haven't shown. Why? Still with the present perfect. Additional features that appear are public car park, which located. There you needed a passive, which were located. The further additional features, there's a lot of features. How many? Features. The further additional features are two. Okay, it's quite confusing, the layout. This examiner says organization is clear. He says, okay, the cohesive devices are clear, but the layout is all confusing. Overall, there are two major features that never change. There's no real overall. This is not overall. This is detail, so this doesn't have an overview. So definitely, now I'm thinking 5 for task response. These features are City Hospital and staff car. Again, he's talking about the things that didn't change. All of this is about things that didn't change. Also, this is about what didn't change. That's not the point. There are some additional features that appear on the map. These features are there, and there's the new stuff. Right at the end, he adds the new stuff. So, I think the examiner mentioned that while the mention of the bus station is not developed. That's the important information. So, definitely I'm giving this 5 for task response, because the overview isn't there, so in automatic 5, but also he hasn't discussed the important stuff properly. I'll give it 6 for cohesion and coherence, maybe 6. I mean, he got the reference pronoun wrong. At least there's some paragraphs and there's some linking language, so maybe I could give 6. If I was in a bad mood, I could give it 5 for cohesion and coherence. Vocabulary, good, I'll give it 7, or 6 at least. And then grammar, I'm going to give it 5, because not using the complex sentences correctly and using this present perfect too much when he doesn't need to use it. Alright, so let me stop there before I go crazy. This document is, I've added a link below, and I'll add another map for you to do if you want.